and welcome to Godless Bitches. I'm your host, Beth Presswood, here with Jen Peeples.
Hi, everybody.
Tracie Harris.
Howdy.
And Jamilla Bey.
Well, good evening, all.
Our
Good day.
Special surprise guest. So, Godless Bitches is a podcast of the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational group dedicated to the separation of church and state and the promotion of positive atheism. The ACA also sponsors the Atheist Experience TV show and podcast and the Nonprofits podcast. You can contact GB using bitches at atheist-community.org, and you can comment on shows at godlessbitches.podbean.com. We also have a Facebook. So, how is everybody doing today?
Great.
Wonderful.
Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm in flames, but other than that, I'm fine.
So, we have a lot of stuff to cover today, along with our special guests. So, I'll have a few little announcements. First of all, Atheist events. September 22nd is the Bat Cruise, which you can find more information about on Facebook or atheist-community.org. Y'all should come down to Austin and see the Bats at our premiere event of the year. We'll be having the Bat Cruise. Teresa McBain will be giving a lecture. The regular Sunday activities, see the show live, blah, blah, blah. All that. You want to come. Denver. If you can get to Denver on Labor Day weekend, Atheist Alliance America is having a convention, and the Godless Bitches will be there doing a live, probably Q&A. We'll be recording it.
Jamilla Bey will be in Denver.
Well, awesome. So, just everybody's going to be there, so you should be there. And remember, 2013, Start Saving Now, Easter weekend, American Atheist Convention in Austin, 50th anniversary. So, hell yeah, and everybody ACA is going to be there, I'm pretty sure. So, also, this is a little bit of a personal thing. I started... Okay, somebody's making noise. What's that?
I'm getting a lot of weird sound.
Yes.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, it stopped. Okay. Now it started again. I think it's typing.
I'm not typing. This time it's not me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm typing. I'm a bad girl. I'll stop.
It's just really loud.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
You can mute yourself if you need to type. So on Facebook, I started a group called Woo Free PCOS, which is a support group for polycystic ovarian syndrome, which I have. If you want a group that doesn't have woo, because all of the other groups on Facebook I found are just infested with.
Oh, Beth,
yes.
Wait. Believe it or not, you need to define woo for people.
Okay. Alternative treatments that are not scientifically proven.
Yeah, woo is basically any kind of unjustified belief that you hold to. I posted it on one of my pages, and people interpreted it as "don't hit on me," and it's like, no, that's not what it means.
No,
not that I want people hitting on me, but that's not what it means.
No, not wooing as in, hitting on people. No, it's not all the alternative bullshit. So y'all can join that if you have PCOS. Also, skepchick.org. Matt just recently, today, sent in a piece on against hating women and, threatening them and, all that stuff that I can't believe we actually have to talk against. But, so he sent that in for Surly Amy's project. You can find that at skepchick.org. All right, so announcements over. How was everyone's happy free birth control slut orgy day?
Woohoo!
It was awesome.
Did I miss a holiday?
Well, today is the day that the HHS mandate goes into effect.
Oh, yeah.
for at least most people. There's some technical issues, but whatever. But yes, they can now no longer discriminate in providing women preventive health care. Woo!
Ooh, yay!
And
I covered this story yesterday. I'm here in Washington D.C. and I went up on Capitol Hill because I'm a reporter and it's sort of what I do for a living. Maryland Senator Barbara Mikulski was the one who was credited with really fighting to make sure that all of these provisions stayed in the Affordable Care Act, which the Supreme Court, of course, upheld. There were a lot of very happy people who spoke about some of those representatives who tried to strip those provisions away as the law made its way through our wonderful legislature here. So it's a big deal because I posted on Facebook. I really wanted to go and stand in front of a doctor's office and scream, "Yay, you! You get free birth control, and you get free birth control." It would have been the closest to Oprah I'll ever get, but I didn't do that. I had to sit in my desk and write.
Well, the anti-choicers are already throwing their little hissy fits. So, guess what? Jen, you want to go into this?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes, we have Representative Mike Kelly, Republican from Pennsylvania, who is an ardent opponent of abortion rights. And today, he said that today's date would live in infamy alongside Pearl Harbor Day and September 11th. Because today is the day American women get free birth control. And that is a tragedy on par with Pearl Harbor Day and 9/11.
Wow.
So there you have it.
I just don't even...
These people have lost their minds.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds horrible, but it's like, I just want to throw up on the person. I mean, I don't even know what else to say to it. It's like, you disgust me to the point that you should just be vomited on. I mean, I don't even know. How could you possibly think this is it would be almost like if someone stood up and said that, you could avoid some physical condition that's dangerous to you, or that, I mean, it's like Beth has said on the show. It's not a risk-free condition. It doesn't matter if it's a natural condition. It's not risk-free, and you can't enforce, you can't make somebody endure it. And in this case, it's not even about abortion. It's about just avoiding it altogether and just avoiding the pregnancy. And for this person to say that, you being able to avoid getting pregnant is some sort of a tragedy. I'm holding back the obscenities that I just want to spew. Because it's so obscene to me that a person would even suggest something that disgusting.
Oh, not only do they suggest it, but they send out mailers and get donations so that they can continue to speak that way. Jen, the scientist to whom I completely bow down, I'm somebody who just asks scientists questions and then does some of the science speak for a lay audience. The fact of the matter is that birth control is something that is simply good health. Women who stay pregnant for a lifetime don't do as well as women who can control their reproduction. If we want to look at this from an economic point of view, women who can be in the workplace and choose to work, better for the country's GDP if we're even looking at that standard. Women who are able to have body autonomy and determine if or not they wish to be pregnant and to be healthier than women who are simply hoping to avoid pregnancy by luck and prayer. I'm sure, have some studies on the efficacy of prayer on pregnancy prevention, but I don't have those at my fingertips. This is whether or not you believe that there's a war on women that's coming from one particular political affiliation in the House and the Senate, there is this underlying feeling that Sex is something that only horrible people have unless you're doing it simply to have a child. And these laws and this rhetoric is punitive and hateful toward women. It is slut-shaming at its finest, if there is such a thing. And I think Rush Limbaugh earlier this year gave us all a taste of the fact that women are not happy to be called sluts, and women understand that this is a big game and there are high stakes involved.
Wow, I'm just going to have you comment on, like, everything forever. That was, like, way more articulate than anything we've ever said on this show.
Yeah, I agree.
I've just avoided, I haven't had any caffeine or alcohol today. That's all that is.
Yeah, it kind of beat, I want to vomit on him.
Yeah.
But it does spark a visceral reaction. When a woman and her body and her doctor have to play not even second fiddle, but they can't play at all when it comes to what a man who will never become pregnant decides. I live in Washington, D.C. For the first time in the history of the United States Congress was a representative whose district was impacted, a representative who served a constituency for whom a law was created, denied the ability to speak. Darrell Issa made it so that it went in front of Congress that women in the District of Columbia could not have abortions after 20 weeks. Didn't matter, private insurance, anything. 20 weeks, you can no longer have an abortion. Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton wanted to say, hey, let me talk to you about what my constituents, the people who pay taxes and live here in the district, want to say about that. And she was not able to speak. They would not let her in to the session to talk about it. That's the first time in the history of the United States that that's ever happened. And it was shutting up a woman who was talking about women's issues and women's health. We've got a problem. We've got a problem, and the thing that's going to fix it is more women saying, you know what, I gotta just get up and write some letters and maybe even run myself. This rhetoric and these types of laws are not showing signs of slowing down, and it's sad, but it's true.
Speaking of 20-week abortion laws, Arizona passed one, and it got upheld by one judge, and now I think there's an injunction against it. It's like the very latest I heard a couple hours ago, I think. Yeah,
I think the Ninth Circuit didn't strike it down. They put an injunction on it. So I think it's the implementation's delayed. But yeah, these abortion laws keep cropping up with alarming frequency.
Yeah, the 20-week thing is a direct challenge to Roe. Because Roe, I believe, says that you cannot ban pre-viability. And 20 weeks is at least 4 weeks pre-viability.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but, I mean, if you think about in terms of, what happens when a woman is pregnant, typically, unless there's some other reason to have an ultrasound, you may not get an ultrasound until you're 20 weeks pregnant. And if you go into that 20-week ultrasound and you find out there's a problem, usually what happens here is that this is a wanted pregnancy, and you go into the 20-week ultrasound, you find out there's some catastrophic something wrong, and now you have no time to make a well-reasoned decision about what to do. You're at the limit.
I have actually been pregnant, and I have a 4-year-old very wanted little one who runs around and screams a lot like his mother. But I deeply remember that 20-week ultrasound because, number one, at that point the terminology is so fraught in which side you're on. When I went and my son was 20 weeks gestating, for the first time, his heart was large enough to be seen on the ultrasound. So if there were any valve abnormalities, any defects like that, that's the first time that the heart and all of its chambers are big enough to be seen on an ultrasound and determine, okay, well, is there a problem, is there not? that's when another reason why these 20-week bans are coming into play is that's when you can tell the genders. Not always. Sometimes you have a kid who won't show you. But one of the arguments is that, well, this is sex selective abortions. They're aborting little girls. If you say, well, you can't have it after 20 weeks, then chances are you know if it's a boy or a girl that a woman is carrying. And they can say, well, if you're not able to ban after that, then we're stopping sex selective abortions, which studies in this country have proven don't really happen. American women aren't aborting babies because they have to have one gender or another. I'm sure there's someone you could find, but statistically speaking, at a level at which it becomes necessary to formulate national policy or even state policy, we're not seeing that.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. I mean, it's a non-problem, the idea of sex selection abortion. But, getting back onto this, 20-week ultrasound thing, I remember going to the 20-week ultrasound, with my wife. And you're right. I mean, it's kind of an emotional event because this is the time when you find out that, if everything's going well, you're having a healthy baby, and you find out if you're having a son or a daughter. And, so that if you've got a name picked out, suddenly this is not just the baby anymore. It's the name, your child has a name. And so, it's a really emotional event. And, to impose a restriction on someone who's probably going into that thinking, this is a pregnancy they want this child. And then if they get bad news, to be up against a point where they cannot sit down and make a reasonable decision about what to do. To me, that's just
cruel.
It's just horrific. Yeah, it's cruel. It's horrific. I just can't imagine why you'd want to do that to someone.
20 weeks is halfway through the pregnancy. If they find that baby has, no heart or no brain or organs developing outside its body, that's an entire half a pregnancy that you will have to go through. Getting bigger, going to the grocery store, having people ask you, what are you having? And what's its name? Or you have to go out of state. Which there aren't that many doctors who do abortions that late anyway. And they killed Tiller.
Yeah.
So it's horrible. Absolutely horrible. So, Jen, your second story, I guess. Unless anybody has any more on that.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted. I got an email from somebody that asked. They were emailing me as in my Atheist Experience co-host persona, asking me to comment on Sally Ride and the fact that she essentially came out in her obituary. And I thought about it a lot, and it's like, okay, that's not really an atheist experience thing because, as far as I know, she wasn't an atheist. But it's actually, I think, related to feminism. And so I thought it'd be more appropriate to talk about it on the Godless Bitches. Because there's been a lot of people in a lot of different venues who are saying that, people are making too big a deal of the fact that she was in a relationship with another woman for 27 years and that's irrelevant to who she was. And we shouldn't make a big deal about it. So I wanted to comment on that because I do think the fact that she came out and that she was in a relationship with another woman for 27 years is significant and it should not go unnoticed. If for no other reason than it's a fact. And people didn't have a problem commenting on the fact that she was married to a male astronaut for a few years. That was noted in her obituary as well. People don't have a problem with that. But somehow people still have a problem with acknowledging the fact that she was in a long-term committed relationship with another woman and that, her obituary acknowledged that. So there's a couple of things I wanted to point out, and that is that I understand from statements her family made that she co-authored that obituary. So she intended for people to know that Tam O'Shaughnessy was her partner of 27 years. The other thing is they weren't hiding in a closet. Their family and friends knew that they were a couple. And the third, the fact that she didn't make some kind of public statement about it, she didn't owe the public any statement about her personal life. She was a public advocate for science and for science education, particularly for girls and children in general. But she didn't owe somebody some kind of public acknowledgement of her sexual orientation. But I think it's significant that she chose to come out, at the end of her life, if only to let people know that someone that you've looked up to, possibly for your whole life, is gay. And if you're gay, then hey, that's one more example of a great role model that you have. And if you're not, then maybe that changes your perception of gay people. For me personally, Sally Ride was always one of my personal heroes, just because she had the audacity to do amazing things. And then later, after she left NASA, she was such a great advocate for science education, and spent so much of her time and energy educating us about things like global warming and space exploration, and she did great things. And so, this adds a depth to her that we didn't, just an extra dimension to her that we didn't know about before. But I do think it's significant. It's not something that should just be ignored.
Yeah.
I have a question. Was there, I mean, first of all, I agree 1,000,000,000%. And there's people that are, I'm sure, really pedantic saying there's no such thing as 1,000,000,000%. But I agree that she didn't owe anybody any explanations about her personal life. But I'm just curious if there was any explanation for why she would out after her death, but not during her life. And the only reason I ask is because, and this may be naive, that's why I'm asking the question and not asserting something. I'm curious. From my perspective, it seems like she was in a unique position in that she was prestigious, and that she was in like an area that was kind of not really effeminate, but like a male-dominated traditional industry. And that it's almost like if there was ever an opportunity to be out about your situation, that would be it. And I don't know. I mean, maybe that's an incorrect perception of being an astronaut or being in that industry. But was there any mention about like her thoughts about why during her life she opted to keep it private but then come public after her death?
Well, I think that, if you look at Sally Ride, after she left NASA, she pretty much kind of disappeared from the public radar. She would surface for, specific events or activities.
Sure.
Specifically promoting Sally Ride science and stuff like that. But one of the things that kind of, I think I always knew about her was that she was very, she didn't really court publicity at all, even as an astronaut. She was uncomfortable with it. And I think a lot of it had to do with some of the intrusive questions that she was asked early on. A couple of years before she flew in space, she was designated as the capsule commander, Capcom. And so she was like the voice for the people, in the shuttle. She was the person sitting there in Houston talking to the astronauts and basically, their lifeline to mission control. And I guess during one of the interviews, in her role as Capcom, one of the reporters asked her he said, "Do you weep when things don't go well at work?"
I don't even know what does that even mean? Is he literally, is he asking, does she cry?
Yeah, he was asking if she cried, if things, didn't go
Wait,
well.
What year was this?
This would have been, early 80s.
That's just sad.
It is. And so, I think I can imagine that experiences like that would really color your perception of, what it's like to be in the public eye and what you're going to face if you go out there and, put yourself out there. So I think part of it was just, it was her nature to be a private person anyway. And I'm purely speculating on this, but I think she just didn't want to deal with crap like that.
I would need clarification for that question. I mean, if someone asked me that, I would really have to clarify it. I would be like, "Are you asking me if I cry when things don't go right at work? Like, is that what you're like seriously? Because that's what it sounds like you're asking."
Yeah, that's exactly what they were asking her. And I read this and I was just having this flashback to when I was in Germany, and we used to have these major inspections, in aviation units. And so it was at the end of this inspection, and I had an instructor pilot come up to me and say, my safety officer wanted me to ask you a question. And I said, okay, go ahead. And the question the safety officer wanted to ask me was whether I was wearing all cotton underwear.
Wait, was there like some pragmatic reason for this question?
Well, yes, actually, for aviators, the Army regulation requires that you wear cotton, wool, or Nomex underwear.
Do they ask the men if they're wearing all cotton underwear?
I am unaware of any male who was ever asked if he was wearing all cotton underwear.
Okay, then it's wrong.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I'm giving them every benefit of the doubt. Number one, does it matter? Yes, it matters. Okay. Do
well,
they
not
ask
only
the
that,
men? No. Okay, then I don't know why they're asking you.
But here's the thing. This question was posed to me. Basically, I was asked to stay behind in a conference room. Everyone else left, and then this question from the safety officer was posed to me. So it was very specifically to me as the only female pilot in the unit at the time.
How humiliating.
Well, and I was kind of stunned. It's like, what do you say? And, I can read the regulation as well as anyone. I know what the requirements are. So my response was, well, I don't wear underwear. And I just turned and walked out.
I'm going commando.
Jen for the win.
Oh my god. Wow.
But you know what? While most women are never going to be in a position where we're flying anything, where we're being asked about that type of thing, this is very similar to it. Hey, it's the 40th anniversary of Title IX. Woohoo! It's not just women in sports; it's women in education. But girls who played sports would be asked, "Well, what color is your bra? You have to be in uniform." Boys would never be asked, what is your does your jock strap match Timmy's? Everybody could understand the indignity suffered by a woman who is in a place that is predominantly male or perceived to be male dominated. They happen every day, and on the one hand, it's like, yay, you go, Jen, for thinking on your feet and just laying them out with something witty. On the other hand, we really need to start naming this stuff and calling it when it happens. And I'm just really grateful to you for sharing that experience, because even though we may not have, we people who are of a gender, not the dominant one where we happen to be, that type of stuff happens all the time. And we need to let the people who are perpetrating that know it ain't acceptable.
Yeah,
they get away with it.
Well, this is kind of interesting because I recently had a sort of networking thing with within my particular industry. I don't talk about my work much, but I had the pleasure to meet a woman who had just gotten her MBA, and she was talking about her experience in her workplace and the differences between how the men and the women were treated, and how the women, they were, I guess where she worked, they were having more programs to get the women to be more assertive when it came to applying for positions, applying for promotion and things like that. And I asked her, was this a situation unique to her industry? Because I think, if I remember right, and I met a lot of people that night, so, excuse me if I didn't focus, specifically. I didn't know I would be talking about it this evening. But I believe she was involved in some sort of a tech industry, which here in Austin is very common, and it is traditionally male dominated. It's not like there's no women in it, but it is a lot of men. And I asked her, was this an industry-specific thing in her mind? And she felt that it wasn't. However, I work in a industry that is not male-dominant. And I work with loads of women with PhDs. I work with, female managers, across the board, CEOs, everything. And this is never an issue. Where I work, this is never an issue. I don't even think about it. And it doesn't really... I don't encounter this. And so the idea of focusing, I guess, I don't deal with the issue of a female working in a male-dominated industry. And so it was kind of interesting to me to hear her talk about her experience and to say, do you think this is industry related? And when she said no, I then explained to her how it was different where I work, and that where I work, it's female dominant, and we don't have that issue. So it's I guess an interesting dynamic.
Well, there's a wonderful book written by a Carnegie Mellon University professor called Linda Babcock, and she's written another one since, but the book I want to reference is called Women Don't Ask. And it talks about women in negotiations. Men walk into a position and they say, hey, well, what are you going to give me? Of course, I'm such an editor. The disclaimers that come from me are hilarious, but I'm sure I'm not speaking to every single person. There are exceptions on either side, but generally speaking, women will not ask for what men ask for. Male people will say, hey, I've been studying this for 3 years. It's time for me to teach some courses. Women will be assistants in a classroom before, it'll take them longer to ask, hey, I've been here 5-6 years. Nobody's offered me a TA position. Maybe I should ask how come the new guy has gotten one. Women, it goes back to the fact that I think a lot of people who are women, really that training, reading those nursery rhymes about the good girl who, just doesn't impose on people, sticks with her. I have to admit, not a day goes by that this loudmouth, obnoxious, abrasive person that I am does not smack herself and go, you should have said this. You should have said that. You should have. Just today, I sent an email to somebody who I really admire and said, hey, look at me at this press conference. What I wanted to say was, would you please send this to the person who's your buddy that I really, really, really love? But I have to admit, like the book says, I'm a woman. I didn't ask, and I kick myself for it. So it's not an issue of I fault anybody I just wish that we could sort of acknowledge it and work to change it.
Well,
but see, this is interesting because, where I'm working currently, there's almost no downtime when it comes to pushing for that next promotion, that next opportunity, that next, what are you doing, and what is your, those stretch goals are very important. It's not just you're going to do your job, but they expect you to do your job and then some, and your view needs to be on, you're not staying in that position forever, you're moving up that ladder, and where the hell is your plan to go within this organization? Because if you don't have a charted plan on your way to the top, then there's no room for you here. And I look at that and I'm like, wow, this is unique industry.
Mm.
Well,
and what you're describing is, women being hesitant to come forward. What I and the industry I inhabit is more of a whoever you are, if you're not planning to promote and if you're not being mentored to promote, something's really wrong with what's happening in your position, because you need to be looking and you need to be moving up. We don't expect you to just sit there in that position for 5 years.
Well, one thing is, back around Equal Pay Day a few months ago, I think I saw a study that came out that said that being seen as too pushy, which would be about the same amount of pushy as a man, actually backfires. It was talking about equality in pay and people saying, oh, well, women don't ask. But it was saying even when women do ask, they're not as likely to get what the man is going to get. So, you're fucked either way.
It does sound like it.
So, Jamilla, you mentioned something about some press conference?
Yeah, tell us about your press conference.
Oh, well, there is a coalition of African American pastors, and they are very upset, you see. This president, Barack Obama, has gone against God and gone against morality. And what he's done is he's spoken out to say, I think gay people should get married if they want to. It's not the role of the government to tell folks who they can give half their stuff to when they get tired of each other. So, of all the issues that affect Black communities in this country, of all the issues of morality and government immorality that affect all Americans, this coalition of Black pastors has decided that they're going to have an event at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and ask Black folks to not support President Barack Obama because he supports gay marriage. Now, two things I want to disclose. Number one, I'm a member of the National Press Club. I'm a full journalist member. I've been a member for 10 years. That's kind of my backyard. That'll be important in a moment. So the pastors say, Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and all the other cliches that we've heard a million times. And this one particular pastor who's running the thing, Pastor Owens, he's taking questions, and he's talking about biblical marriage, and we need a president who's going to support and defend biblical marriage. So I asked him, because I was a debater in high school and college, and the first thing every debater does is you define your terms. So I asked him, well, what did God say about polygamy? And he stammered and said, well, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about, marriage and biblical marriage. I said, well, what's the definition of biblical marriage? One man, one woman. He yells at me. I said, well, tell me about Abraham's marriage. And then he starts getting angry or something, and I said, well, this isn't about, I said, Reverend, you said you talk about biblical marriage. And he starts, going, I'm not here to talk about that. Next question. So you get loud on me. I'm going to get loud back. I said, Reverend, what is what is the Bible's, or what does God say about polygamy? What is, and he's getting all upset. And then he starts asking, can you have this woman removed? Now, I'm a member of this place. I'm there all the time. I've even won awards for my service to the press club. Asking to have me thrown out of the press club is like asking to have Lou Ferrigno thrown out of a gym. Number one, he belongs there. Number two, who's going to do it? They're all his friends. And I'm sure he's not doing anything. I went in there and I said, you know what, this doesn't sound right. Let me ask some questions. If you're going to talk about biblical marriage, let's talk about biblical marriage, because if your God gave Abraham Hagar the handmaiden and said, make out with her, get her pregnant, your wife can't do it, clearly that's not one man, one woman. The wisest man in the Bible, according to this particular Christian tradition from which these reverends came, Solomon, how many hundred wives? That's biblical marriage. biblical marriage says that if a person owns a slave, that slave is his property. What does consent mean to one who is property? What is I really want to know, since no God has ever answered me when I ask. I mean, what does that mean? Is it okay for a master to have sex with those he has enslaved? There is property. The Bible condones this. But I didn't even get to ask that stuff because he was all upset, and another reporter started asking. You said that Obama supporting gay marriage is going to lead to greater support of child molestation. This reverend had actually said that very thing and then tried to clean it up. But this is no different than any run-of-the-mill group that hates people because they are black, that hates people because they are immigrants. If you hate somebody and try and say, well, I don't hate you, I hate what you do, that's equivocation that I just don't like.
Yeah, and everybody should go watch this video. It is so awesome. I think Friendly Atheist covered it. But yeah, Jamila's awesome, and we just kind of had her as on as a surprise guest because we got to talking. But so I don't think a lot of maybe some of our listeners will know who you are. You already said you're a journalist, you live in DC, and you did this awesome thing. But why don't you tell a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I was born a poor black child. No, I actually was. I am a reporter these days, but I grew up in Pittsburgh. I was born to a family, and we believe in our Steelers, and we love the Steelers. I love the Steelers. Go Steelers. But I was actually raised by a Southern Baptist convert to Catholicism and a non-practicing black Muslim, as in the follow the minister Elijah Muhammad black Muslims. By the time I was 7, I was confused. I had first cousins who were Jewish. I had a bunch of Muslim cousins and friends. I went to school and I was Catholic. My other friends were just generic Christian. I had some cousins who weren't allowed to wear skirts as shorts as girls. They had to wear skirts. And I realized that none of this made sense, and it all seemed to make sense to me when I was thinking about the Christmas of my 4th year. My father has the world's most distinctive handwriting, and when I saw that Santa and Dad had the same Gothic style A, I realized what was up, and I was so proud of myself. There's no Santa Claus. You're Santa Claus. I get it. And I could see my parents, making it up on the spot, lying to me. No, Santa was busy and asked me to fill out this form or fill out the gift tag for you because he had to get to. And I'm going, Santa's magic and has reindeer that fly. He can't write to Mimi on a package. Yeah, you're lying to me. And I realized that because if there was no Santa, then there was no incentive for me to be good. They couldn't hold anything over my head to make me behave as they saw fit. And when I realized that some of my cousins had to swelter in the heat, and other ones couldn't eat pork, and some of them couldn't do this, and I couldn't play cards at this one's house. Old maid. I couldn't play old maid because they're cards and they're gambling. You try and gamble playing old maid. Whatever. It all made sense to me, by the time I was 7. I'm not going to believe anything that anybody tells me without proving it, ever. And so it sort of set the stage for me to become this obnoxious, some have called me asshole. I think that's sweet. I will always ask the question that's on my mind. I will not let you just tell me anything. I will always demand proof, and from 2 sources, at least. And I will always go to a primary source. So I came and did a 10-year sentence of hard labor at NPR from 2000 to 2010. And now I host a show called The Sex, Politics, and Religion Hour, Spar with Jamilla, and it airs on Mondays in New York and Washington, D.C. And I contribute to the Washington Post, their blog called She the People. It's women on news and culture. And I also contribute to MSNBC every once in a while, up with Chris Hayes. So I'm a pretty busy person, but I'm also working on a book about the role of religion in the lives of African American women in particular. And I have weaned myself off caffeine, so I'm doing this all drug-free, because caffeine was my drug of choice.
Awesome.
You're crazy.
Yeah.
That too, yes. Never
Yeah,
said I wasn't.
I was with you right up until the caffeine thing, and it's like, whoa,
You're just nuts.
that's just wrong.
Yep. That's a sin.
Well, I agree. It's sort of, I realized that I was completely addicted to caffeine and sugar, and I had no control over what I was eating. And so, okay, all right, don't yell at me. Don't yell at me. But I am 10 days into an all juice fast. I juice my vegetables and my fruits, and that's all I've been ingesting. I did cheat yesterday and have 6 pistachios, but I was going crazy and losing my mind. I'm doing that. I realize that there are a lot of people who cannot do that. I suggest everyone check with their own doctor. I'm an incredibly healthy person, and I want to keep it that way. And I needed to just get some control in my life and some feeling of I can handle this, and I do not need to suck down chocolate bars and frappa mocha latte whatevers to get through my day. So I'm an all or nothing type. I'm doing the nothing right now, and I'm seeing some benefits from it. I've got cheekbones again. It's really awesome.
Now, I'm cool with the juice thing. I think it's cool. Especially if it's just like a temporary thing. And I mean, it's not like you're giving up eating forever. It's interesting how many fruits and vegetables you can ingest when you're doing a juice thing.
Tell me about it. Oh man. Oh man. I'm like, wow, I've eaten 5 heads of cabbage today. You know what's shockingly delicious is Vidalia onion juice. You can't talk to anybody for like 3 hours later, so it works very well if you're trying to be antisocial. But it's very tasty.
Yeah, I combine things I never thought I would combine, and it is interesting.
Oh yeah.
Well,
oh yeah.
I'm doing the opposite. I'm sort of lower carbonate right now, so no juice. Meat, meat, meat.
Ah, I love meat.
Yeah, and I'm just sticking with my caffeine and dark chocolate, you know.
Oh.
There you go.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, there's actually a book called Buzz that talks about, among other things, the effect that caffeine has on your brain, and it can actually, it's got suggestions for how to maximize the impact of caffeine on, you know, your brain function and your alertness and performance and stuff like that. So I learned a lot from that, and I've adjusted my caffeine consumption accordingly.
Cool.
Yeah.
I something else for me to do. Maybe I'll get the audiobook and listen to it while I sleep and osmosis the knowledge.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jamila, does your radio show have a podcast version?
It's coming this very week. We're transitioning all of our stuff from servers in the Ukraine. Please don't ask me to explain that. But servers in the Ukraine to the U.S. And within the next 2 weeks, all of my shows are going to go up on iTunes. I've interviewed Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. You might not know who he is, but he's really dreamy. Joking, I kid. I've also interviewed Liz Winstead, who is awesome and hilarious. She is one of the co-creators of The Daily Show. She's a comedian who is just awesome. I talked to Roseanne Barr, for an hour. She's a Green Party, she didn't win the nomination, but she was hoping for the nomination for Green Party presidential candidate. She's rather awesome, and I love her, and I grew up with Roseanne. So I get to talk to a lot of people on whom I have amazing crushes and pretend it's all for journalistic integrity's sake. So, oh, wait, did I just out myself? But I did. Okay, well, too late. So that's my show. Look for the podcast in the next 2 weeks.
Awesome. I
Cool.
love podcasts. I'd listen to them all day at work, especially crazy Christian ones. I can't get enough. Can't get enough.
I don't know how you do that.
I torture myself. I'll be sitting there pipetting, and it's like, grrr, want to stab somebody with this pipette.
You must know what the other side is thinking. You must be able to argue their point better than they can, because it just makes you that much better. Everything I learned from debate. I didn't come home with a national trophy as a child myself, but my kid, you watch out someday. But listening to why it's wrong to race mix, listening to why it's wrong for a woman to lie with a woman like she's lying with a man, listening to why that Barack Hussein Obama is bad for this country and business is very good for helping you to understand your own point of view. So it makes you crazy, but it's just intellectual work. People don't like to think. Thinking is fun.
Yep. So, a few other news bits. Chick-fil-A.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
So
I don't live near one.
Yeah.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah.
I'm told.
So, for everybody who doesn't know, which must be like 3 people by now, Chick-fil-A is anti-gay. They've been that way for a long time. They give money to anti-gay causes. Their founder, Truett Cathy, who's like 91, came out and said that they were a biblically based company and that they're for biblical marriage. I don't know, a few days ago, something. And people started saying they were going to boycott it. And then the anti-gay people said today was the day they all went to Chick-fil-A to show their support for biblical values. And Friday, by the way, is National Gay Kiss-In Day at Chick-fil-A, which makes me really happy because my best friend, Nikki, is flying in for a weekend, and I know she'll make out with me, so we're going to Chick-fil-A.
Yay! Okay, the Jamilla the journalist is wearing her scoop cap right now with a card and a pen stuck inside. Here's my problem with calling Chick-fil-A anti-gay. They're not only anti-gay. They give money to the organization that sends reverends over into African countries. Let's look at Uganda. Has this show ever talked about the Kill the Gays bill in Uganda, where being homosexual, not acting on that, but being identified as homosexual can get you the death penalty?
Yeah,
that's what Chick-fil-A is supporting. They're like, forgive me, I don't like when people are discriminated against. I'm an African American myself. I have been discriminated against, and it's nowhere like what people in my parents and my grandparents' generation and beyond. But I do know what discrimination is, and I know that it's a hurtful thing, and I'm not trying to support it at all. I do think, however, calling Chick-fil-A anti-gay diminishes the extent to which their money and their support has caused harm and terror to come to people. If you are a gay Ugandan, what if you're not gay and people just think you're gay in Uganda? You have reason to fear for your life. That's called terrorism, my friends. And that's what your tasty chicken nuggets and whatever else they sell. I understand there are waffle fries involved. But that's what you're helping to prop up and support. I'm the type of person who, frankly, you know what? I'm really into who I'm into, and unless you're doing somebody I want to be doing, I don't care. You did. I wish everybody was more that way. I have deep and abiding preferences, and they are my own, and I keep them private. And I don't even think my husband knows what they are, because it just never comes up. I'm into him, but I don't know. It just never comes up. I wish we could have more of that. Just, with the internet, nobody ever needs to know. Why are you upset because somebody else is having joy.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like I'm talking so much. I'm a guest here, and I'm just going prattle.
You're
prattle.
supposed
You
to
just
talk.
No, you're great.
Yes, you're supposed to talk.
Okay.
No,
I
got a call from my brother this afternoon, and he informed me that my stepmother and her husband of a few months were headed over to Chick-fil-A to support Chick-fil-A because of their stance on biblical marriage. And so that's why I basically burst into flames this afternoon, and I'm still kind of in flames over this. She knows about me. She's known about me for decades now. And the interesting thing about this, okay, let me kind of give you the level of hypocrisy involved in her position here. She is about as God-soaked as you can be. She goes to this Methodist church that's like really fundamentalist, and as fundamentalist as Methodists can be. But anyway,
I was going to ask that, but
Yeah, me too.
yeah, they're anyway, they have some views in that particular church that are a departure from the main church. But anyway, this is her 5th marriage. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. She was married to my father for nearly 30 years. She was married to a guy before him. And in fact, she and my dad were living together while she was still married to this other guy, because it takes like a year to get a divorce in Louisiana where they were originally married. And then, there was the long marriage to my father. And then she's been married to 3 people since my father died in 2006. And so anyway, the jury's still out on this current guy. We don't know how long he's going to last. And so she thinks that, her idea of biblical marriage apparently involves her being able to get married as many times as she wants to as many guys as she wants to. But I can't get married even once to the woman that I've been with for 11 years now. Or is it 11? No, actually it's 12. I think we're going on 12 years now. And we have a child together and the whole 9 yards. And so, my message to her tonight is I hope she enjoys that chicken sandwich, because it could very well cost her relationship with me. It might be a cold day in hell before she ever sees her grandson again, because I am not going to have him around people who don't respect his family.
Well, you know what you tell me about the definition of family.
I am, believe me, I live that. If you act like family, you are family. If you don't, you're not. And blood doesn't matter.
I just want to say, if you're part of a group like religion or anything else that requires you to be a bigot, you might want to consider whether or not you want to be part of that group. It's just kind of my advice.
Yeah.
Some people care so much about belonging that's all they care about. Most of us grow out of that after adolescence, but not all. And it's sad. Listening to the stories of folks, and again, disclaimer, Jamilla strikes here. I cannot speak for all Black people, wouldn't want to. I don't speak for everyone who is a Pittsburgher either, though that's an affiliation I outwardly and openly claim. When I'm with my friends who are African Americans or African Americans for Humanists or Black Atheists of America, a bunch of groups that I'm very involved in, some of the saddest stories are those of estrangement from family and parents because they dare to say, I don't buy into the traditions that have oppressed and subjugated people such as ourselves for years. I think women need to start talking about that too, because nothing has oppressed women as much as religion. I mean, hell, we're in some circles, it's believed that we caused the downfall of humanity. That's a pretty major thing to be cursed with for just being born without a penis. But we have so much of this in common. Those of us who have been cast out of our families, or our families make it so that we may have well been, and we really need to do all that we can to let one another know, hey, I love you, I support you, let's be play cousins and adopt each other, because we are social creatures, and our species is to be pack creatures, and it's a shame that news channels and unfortunate tax-exempt organizations that tell you who you're supposed to hate can get in the way of the fact that, you know what, we're all people and we just want to love somebody. We just want to be accepted by somebody.
Yeah.
That was a little kumbaya for me. I'm sorry. Let me say something offensive now.
You know what's weird though?
Texas, unless you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. Okay.
Now, what I find really interesting is, like, I don't even ask like that much from people. Like, when I think of, for example, this idiot that's trying to have a crap fit about people having access to birth control, my thought is, I'm not even asking you to like me. I'm not asking you to like women. I'm not asking you to like women having sex. And you can think of them as sluts, like, till the day is long. Just don't interfere with their rights. And don't interfere with what's best for them. Just let people live their lives, and you don't worry about it. And if you want to hate it till your satisfaction. Like, whatever that does for you to hate it, have that. Hate it all day long. Hate it on the weekends. Hate it at night. You know, sit there and freaking obsess on it and just seethe with your freaking hatred. And I can live with that as long as you're not undermining my capacity to live my life and do what's best for myself. Just don't interfere with my life, and we're cool.
Right. And that's, I was talking to my brother about this, and, I said, if the guy, if the guy that owns Chick-fil-A had come out and said, hey, I just don't think gay people should get married, and that's just my personal opinion. If that's all he'd said, it's like, okay, I don't care about that. But that's not all he said, and that's not all he did.
Right.
He has spent millions providing funding to organizations and to politicians who want to deny equal rights to other people.
Yeah, these aren't people that are satisfied with just having their opinion.
Right. And that's why it infuriates me when people come up and say, oh, but, we have to respect Chick-fil-A's First Amendment right to... And it's like, nobody's infringing on their First Amendment right. Nobody's infringing on their right to say whatever stupid, vile thing they want to say. But if you step out in the public square and you say a stupid, vile thing, your First Amendment rights don't exempt you from criticism for that. And if I say, hey, I'm boycotting Chick-fil-A, I'm not being hypocritical or infringing on anybody's free speech rights or anything. You're not entitled to my money. Right. I don't have to go and spend my money in your establishment. If I don't like what you stand for,
what Jamilla is saying, though, was, that feeds into it as well, which is, this isn't just about an opinion. This is about somebody throwing significant amounts of money toward killing people. Exactly. And that's a whole other level of wrong. And just because you're killing people in another country?
Right, yeah.
It's like suddenly that doesn't matter?
Well, yeah, and I think about the number of organizations, nonprofit organizations funded by religious groups that have gone into Africa and have totally fucked over African countries, because they can, And basically, if you look at what's happening in Uganda, they're using this as sort of their little social experiment to see just how far they can go with some of this super religious crap.
They are funding ministers and people of esteem in their particular places who say, don't use condoms, they don't work. It's a conspiracy. Don't believe it. You men, you go and you tell your wives, I will have sex because that is what I'm supposed to do, and it doesn't matter whether you want it or not. You are men, and God has granted you dominion. That is the way it is. You go into your homes and you tell your children, you will obey me, and if you disobey, I will beat you because I am a man and God has given me dominion. These are people, again, I don't think that's domestic violence. I think, and look at the definition, I'm a word person, the definition of terrorism and certainly applies here. When you have these people preaching and teaching people to go into their homes and to be tyrants in their homes and to instill the, say it with me, fear of God in their wives and their children, and to exact their force sexually with their wives and physically with their children, that is terror. That's what your yummy chicken sandwich is helping to fund. People who teach others to do that. You know, just saying, there's a really great tutorial. I can't remember the woman's name and my typing is way too loud. So, YouTube Chick-fil-A sandwich or something. It looks yummy. I wouldn't know. I'm hungry right now. All I've had is juice, damn it.
Well, and you know, I'll add to that the fact that if you look at Uganda in particular, about 15 years ago, their rate of HIV infection was falling. And part of that was that they had one of the most effective education systems out there. And it was partly based on this ABC program, the Abstinence, Be Faithful, and Condoms program, which I think I've said this several times on the show. ABC programs don't actually work. The only part of that works is the condom part. And the fact that, you know, they were encouraging people to come in and get tested, and if they were HIV positive, to get treatment. And those are the things that actually prevent other infections. And so now, instead of this really effective program, they've got the religious guys coming in there, as Jamilla said, you know, telling people don't use condoms. And because of this anti-gay stuff, the anti-gay terrorism, they are driving gay people underground and driving HIV positive people underground. So people will not disclose their status. They will not seek treatment, because if they do, they may be killed. And so now you have a bunch of people who are HIV positive, who are highly infectious because they're not getting treated, and they're out there having unprotected sex. And that is the formula for disaster. And what we know is that the HIV rate in Uganda is actually rising. We don't have a good handle on it, though, because people who are positive are not coming forward.
Wonder how that happened.
Yeah. So these people have blood on their hands on so many levels.
Yes.
And that's not an opinion. That's not an opinion to say these people have blood on their hands. You can trace it. You can look at it. You can talk to public health experts in the region. You can talk to people who have fled the region. That's fact you're stating, and there is research, there is science, and there is journalism behind it to show that you're right.
Okay, wait. Let me just recap so make sure that I'm understanding everything correctly here. So, what we've established is that the Christian perspective, as it's put forward by these public figures, is that birth control for women is like a international tragedy, and killing gay people is cool.
Some,
pretty much.
Yeah.
but yeah, there are some who say that and live that and financially support that.
Okay, just making sure I'm clear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, one last tie-in with the Chick-fil-A story. So, some anti-choice protesters and Concerned Women for America, which is just an evil, evil group, went out and bought a bunch of Chick-fil-A sandwiches and took them to a Planned Parenthood and tried to give them to the workers there, and said they attempted to find some common ground, but none of the people that worked there would take the shit sandwiches. So now they're acting all whiny. We tried to have common ground and just minister to them and give them sandwiches.
Oh, yeah, that's, you know what, that reminds me of, having the concerned citizens of America dress up and just polo shirts and I guess resort wear and go into a predominantly Spanish speaking neighborhood and say, look at us. We fit in. We have good jobs. If you just pull up your pants and look like us, then you'd be okay. Let us teach you how. And wondering why they'd get a bad reception. The symbolism of a Chick-fil-A sandwich today is greater than the symbolism of most any other sandwich you could. I would argue if they'd gone to another fast food joint and got burgers, they may have had a better reception. But no, they wanted to push the issue. They wanted to say, here is a Christian sandwich wrapped up in what people are calling hatred and bigotry, whether or not that's what it was. And take this and know that we don't believe in being open on Sundays, and we think that life begins at conception, and we want to support organizations that don't believe in condom distribution and whatnot. That's hateful. That's mean.
It is, but what's interesting is, I got your point, like when you were saying, hey, some Christians are like this or some people are like this. And it's like, with Chick-fil-A, if it was just Chick-fil-A, that'd be one thing. But to organize this entire, national go support Chick-fil-A Day, it's like, wait a minute, this is more than just Chick-fil-A. This is a bunch of people basically saying, I agree with this. Yeah. And the other thing is, what these people are doing with handing someone a sandwich that is clearly, a sandwich wrapped in blood and bigotry and hate. This is passive aggressive. And let me just point out that there are few ideologies that promote such passive aggressive, codependent, sick behavior as Christianity and religions that are along this Abrahamic line. And the whole idea of this is that you are responsible every time God gets a rod up his ass about something. So your behavior dictates how God feels and how God reacts. And so you have to walk around on egg freaking shells, worried about how you might upset your God. And this is the very definition of a codependent relationship, where you walk around being responsible for somebody else's freaking offensive, sense of offense and freak out. No, I'm sorry, I can't be responsible for how you react to crap. And I'm not going to sit around making sure that I don't do something to piss you off because you're just looking for shit to be pissed off about and getting all up in my business and involved in the crap that I do in my life because you're just, looking for some reason to freaking send my ass to hell. This is what they're involved in, except that they accept it as normal. If you were in a relationship with a human being where every time they got upset at you or angry or decided to freaking beat you, you thought to yourself, this is my fault. I just need to do whatever it takes to not make them hit me and not make them freaking pummel me and not make them scream at me and not make them disappointed in me. And, I have to make sure they love me by doing everything they say that I should do. And people would say that's freaking completely ill. And they'd be right. But this is the entire basis of Christianity. It's it sets people up to live in this codependent, childlike, I'm responsible for every reaction of my God scenario. And so it doesn't surprise me they're passive aggressive because passive aggressive communication comes out of powerlessness. You become passive aggressive because you can't be aggressive. I can't say what I really want, so I have to try to kind of sideways, squeeze in kind of how I can say, I'll sit here and pretend like I'm having a problem and maybe you'll notice and come and help me, because I can't just come out and say, I need some help with this. Can you please come over here and give me a hand with it? Because being aggressive and being able to express your needs is completely wrong within Christianity. You have to suppress all that crap, and you have to just cater to your God.
Well, that's one of the deadly sins. Sloth is not being slow, and the original meaning of what we call sloth is how dare it's. I'm not a theologist, but this one I got. How dare you be unjoyful in your heart because you know that Jesus has died for you? How dare you feel, or you not feel the light of his love and his sacrifice at all times? What does that do to a normal human person who experiences a wild vicissitude of feelings, maybe even in the same day? You must always be joyful. You must always be thankful. You must always know that somebody died on a cross for your sins. And if you ever don't feel joy, you are degrading that sacrifice. So that's how you sort of have to think and act and be at all times. It's a deadly sin to feel otherwise.
Also, though, consider the insanity of telling a person that there absolutely is nothing they could possibly do to ever deserve this salvation. Like, there's nothing you could possibly do, no work that you could achieve or accomplish, no attitude, no action, no life well lived that would ever earn you what God has provided here for you. And then on the other hand, you need to freaking watch your every misstep, because you go a hair out of line and you are fucked up. It's completely messed up. It's like somebody said earlier, you can't win for losing. If first of all you're told that what you do doesn't matter, that you can't possibly, even if you're as good as you can be, it still doesn't count for shit. And then you're told you have to do everything perfectly, and if you fuck up, then you're fucked up. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I don't even know what the hell the rules are here. This is crazy.
Well, you better stop wearing cotton collie blems, I'll tell you what.
Oh, yeah.
I did. You have to wear all cotton, according to Jen.
Yeah.
Or go commando.
Well, to be fair, wool or Nomex were options, but I have never been able to find Nomex underwear, and wool is just too itchy.
What the hell is Nomex? What is Nomex?
It's a synthetic material that's flame resistant, flame and heat resistant. So the flight suits are made of Nomex.
Oh, and theoretically they make underwear with this stuff.
Yeah, theoretically, but I've never found Nomex underwear, so
it would be funny though.
Does Nomex breathe, Jen?
Does Nomex breathe?
Yeah.
Like cotton, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, but it does not absorb sweat very well.
You'll be swimming in your own.
That sounds like a yeast infection waiting to happen.
Yeah, so you definitely want some cotton in there, because otherwise you're going to be swimming in your own sweat.
Yeah.
That's true. Even the nylons come with a cotton crotch.
Yeah.
This is our show, Jamilla.
Boy, do I fit in here. Can I just say?
Yeah,
you can come on anytime you want to.
Oh, well, thank you for the invite. You'll get sick of me soon.
Well, getting back to the offer of the free Chick-fil-A sandwiches that the anti-abortion people brought, I just wanted to point out, why would they take sandwiches from these people? These are the same groups that shoot abortion doctors and burn down clinics and threaten people. Why would you take food from somebody like that?
Yeah, why would they even suspect that there should be a connection, like a personal connection? Why are you even trying? Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, what makes you think that this is even welcome or invited or, like that? Yeah, that really is galling. The idea that, let me go and extend my hand of friendship. And it's like, well, what the hell makes you think that anybody wants to be friends with you? You're just some crazy wingnut that's out there protesting.
Yeah, seriously, who would think that was some kind of well-meaning gesture? If an anti-abortion clinic or an anti-abortion protester walked up and offered me a Chick-fil-A sandwich while I was working in an abortion clinic, my thought would be, okay, best case, they put something that I don't want to eat on it, okay? And worst case, there's, something that's going to kill me in this sandwich.
Yeah.
Under no circumstances would I think of eating that sandwich.
It just seems so, I don't even know what the word is for me, but it seems so, I guess, pointless.
Yeah.
There is no point to it. It's not like someone taking your sandwich is going to resolve this issue. So why don't you just go back to your protest sign and continue your protest, because this is not going to fix anything. You giving someone food isn't going to make them think that they should then relinquish all their rights to the government. It's like, what are you doing?
Exactly. It's like, okay, I'm a grown woman, an independent woman. I can buy my own damn sandwich, thank you.
It really bothers me when I see actions that are not rational, because I don't know how to take them. I don't know what is going through the person's mind or what their motivation is. But it's like, if I don't understand your motivation, if there's not a clear reason for it, then it's disturbing to me.
Well,
because I want to know what the hell you're doing and why you're doing it. If I don't understand why you're doing it and I'm involved in it, then you're really, really freaking me out.
Well, the Christian witnessing mythology is that small acts of kindness they plant little seeds, and they get people to see that you're not a horrible person, so that they're more likely to listen to you and eventually convert.
Oh, okay. So they think that this is like an emotional appeal. Basically what they're saying is, if I'm a nice person, I'm a nice person, therefore I'm right. And it's like, no, it's not correct. It's not rational. It doesn't make any sense at all. Plus, if I'm not starving, then your offer of a sandwich is unhelpful. Well, I have to actually need the food in order for the offer of food to be meaningful.
Yeah, not only that, but that sort of behavior where they offer these small acts of kindness in the hopes that you'll think more highly of them, that's called grooming behavior, and it's something that abusers do to their potential victims to get them to be more receptive to, later incursions. Yeah. So child molesters almost always do some sort of grooming behavior.
It's also sometimes called a bribe.
Yeah. Yeah.
The point is, it's completely irrelevant to the dialogue.
Exactly.
Whether or not someone offers me a freaking sandwich has nothing to do with my rights. I don't give a crap if you're a nice person. I don't care if you're freaking the nicest person on the planet outside of wanting to strip me of my rights. You could be peach pie to everybody else on the planet, but while you're trying to steal my rights, your sandwich doesn't compensate. Yeah. I don't want your damn sandwich. I want you to leave me the frick in hell alone.
There we go.
Yes.
And I love to play in the shades of gray, and women need health care, and sometimes that health care dictates that a woman need to have the pregnancy that was inside of her taken out. It was good enough for Rick Santorum's wife when that baby that she carried was not viable and wasn't going to be. Nobody made her go through 40 weeks or until an infection set in or the body, expelled that non-viable pregnancy on its own. That's what those clinics do as well. The idea that these are Jerry Springer guests on the run, who are, having these recreational abortions because they're just so much fun to have, and these are fallen women who deserve punishment and scorn. That's not the case. One of the things one learns about propaganda is when you demonize the other, when you make everybody in that building, a sinner, a harlot, whatever you hate, and then you can take away their humanity. These aren't Jewish people, they're rats. These aren't black people, they're vermin. These aren't other human beings, they're sinners who deserve the fiery pits of hell. I am taking them to their salvation, or I am taking them to their eternal punishment as God has ordained. when you're able to look at people like that and look at their situations that way, it's really hard to be rational and make good decisions. But again, that comes into needing to think, and we know that Americans and all people need more thinking. So, to think that a clinic is just this den of depravity, there are a lot of women who, when you look at the obesity rates in this country, when you look at the rates of so-called comorbidities, women who have conditions that make pregnancy not a good idea. Women are taking a lot more medications these days. Some of these medications will make it impossible to have a healthy pregnancy, so that if you find out that your birth control failed, or if for some reason you were forced to have sex against your will, or what's happening in a down economy, you're a woman who is staying with some guy and you can't really tell him no because it is kind of his place, and well, it's not that bad, and oh damn, I'm pregnant, what do I do? We need to provide support so that, and we need to provide birth control, which today it was Happy Birth Control Day. But when we start to address the things that cause people to need to find themselves in a position of having to go to a clinic that performs abortion, we're going to see much less of it. But that's not what's happening. We want to demonize, and we want to use hateful language, and we see people who are okay with the idea of using terror tactics against doctors and the clinic staff and the women who would show up. And that's gotta stop. We need to start calling that out, because it's not unknown. It's not unknown, and I'm not saying that anyone's comfortable with that language, but it doesn't surprise us when things happen. And that's not a very American spirit at all. That's not a very human spirit.
Jamilla, I might have to correct you on one thing or ask you about your sources. I was under the impression that Rick Santorum's wife, it could never actually be shown that she had an abortion.
Yeah, that's okay. So here's the story with Rick Santorum's wife as has been put forth. There was a pregnancy that was no longer viable. She was not at term, and then she was no longer pregnant. So I am not the doctor. I'm not even a friend who was told in hushed tones what really happened. But these are facts we know. She was pregnant. Child had a condition. She was at 40 weeks. She wound up not pregnant again. It is possible that she had a spontaneous abortion. Oh, wait, that's not what we call it when we're mincing words. It is possible that she had a miscarriage or whatever. But after a certain point, a miscarriage still requires a doctor to do a D&C, which requires you to be scraped so as to make sure that there's no material left behind in the uterus that could cause an infection. So, but how great it was for her that she had appropriate health care to take care of herself.
Well, the Salon piece I read, a couple of Salon pieces, she was like 20 weeks. The baby had a defect that they attempted to do intrauterine surgery on, but she got an infection, and labor started spontaneously, which it can do due to infection. And they were saying that she wouldn't even consent to induction with Pitocin to make the labor proceed faster. Although there is some dispute on whether she accepted the Pitocin or not. Because,
and how sad... Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry I interrupted. I won't.
Yeah. So it's kind of iffy, because if she did induce and, made the baby come out faster, that technically would be prohibited under the rules that Santorum wants. So that's kind of iffy, and nobody really knows what happened.
So Is it? I would argue that Mrs. Santorum deserves enough privacy that tale should have been left between her, her doctor, her husband, and anyone else she chose to tell about it. But the culture we live in now is such that, I mean, it's news. It's for public consumption. Now, what actually happened in that hospital? None of us will ever know, which leads to speculation and suppositions. But again, the point you made is the one I want to drive home. The laws that her husband would put in place would not even give any other woman in the identical position the same options. How sad is that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of weirdly interesting that, Jen was talking about Sally Ride earlier and, her personal life and how, you have this right to your privacy and you don't have to talk about things that are personal if you don't want to, even if you're this public figure. And then we've got this issue where we're talking about this extremely, excruciatingly private, personal situation with Santorum's wife, which you're just, I'm sitting here listening to this and all I can think is, I can't imagine being the woman who is being discussed in this kind of open way by strangers on a podcast. You know what I mean? And so I look at that and I think to myself, and yet, when your husband introduces this legislation, this is exactly the kind of shit that we have to get into because this is where he wants to take it.
Yeah.
This is your personal private crap here, and the government doesn't need to be involved in this. And the reason for it is because nobody needs to be knowing about everybody's other private body crap. This is really not something the government should be dealing in.
What procedure has a male member of Congress or the Senate undergone that we are discussing in this level of detail? Representative Jesse Jackson Jr. right now is not in Congress. He's having some kind of medical issue. His constituents don't even know what it is. We're not talking about his personal, private medical issues this way. This is a double standard, but it's a standard that matters because Mrs. Santorum is married to someone who so legislated, and this only happens with women's health. Does not happen with men's health. And there's a problem. There's a problem with that. Either we are all equal and we are all to be protected equally under the law, or this ain't the America that we're told it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I would also point out that there have been people in Congress who've had some fairly significant mental health issues that would reasonably call into question their judgment. And, we haven't been privy to that information until, they suddenly resigned because they committed some really inappropriate act somewhere, or, they just voluntarily decided, I'm out of here. And I think that, even for a lot of people that have probably stepped down or decided not to run again, there may have been some issues that we didn't even know about. And those are things that, we could legitimately look at that and say, well, that would be good information to know when you go to the polls. And yeah, we don't know about this, but suddenly, like I said, like you were saying, we're talking about women's personal medical decisions as if it's, a matter of national security here.
I mean, this is extremely personal, though. I mean, yeah. I can't imagine what could be more personal and more private and less my business than what happened to her in that room that night or that day. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself that as crass as that this discussion is even happening, it's your freaking husband driving it.
Exactly.
And I can't believe that anybody thinks that this is appropriate to be concerned about when it comes to your next door neighbor's health and welfare and their personal shit. This is none of your business.
Right. And see, to me, this is like, my position on outing somebody. If somebody wants to be private about their sexual orientation, I am generally opposed to outing someone in all cases except for one, and that is when you are actively working against the gay community, when you support things that directly harm the gay community, and you are in fact a member of the gay community, you deserve to be outed for that.
No, I wouldn't argue.
And
Mhm.
I, it's not exactly like this, but the Santorums are kind of in that situation a little bit.
No, you're making it an issue.
Yeah.
It wasn't an issue until you made it an issue. When you start making it an issue and somebody says, wait a minute, you're doing all this screaming about homosexuals, you're homosexual. That's just bound to come out. Like, how could you dream that wouldn't come out? And it's the same type of thing. If you're going to go to the wall for this, pregnancy procedure and whatever the hell you're doing with legislating this, and you've got this crap with your wife, do you not know what is going to happen to your wife when you start pushing this legislation and what's going to happen to her privacy? Do you just not even care? I don't even understand, the thinking that you went through this and you don't understand the level of freaking this is your business and nobody else's business. After you went through it, you think this is appropriate for other people to know about and be discussing? You think this is cool, that this is the discussion happening about your wife in the public? This is fine with you because you want to bring this to public to every woman.
Well, not only that, but the Santorums have a child with a chromosomal disorder. Okay, I guess it's their youngest child.
Bella Santorum.
Yes. Okay, so this child, it's a pretty devastating disorder that she has. And most of the pregnancies, where the fetus has this disorder, most of them don't ever go to term. The fetus usually dies in utero, and basically the pregnancy terminates. So the fact that she has survived as long as she has is pretty remarkable. It's actually kind of a testament to the fact that they have really good insurance. But other than that, I mean, they made a choice to continue that pregnancy. Okay, and I fully support their right to make that choice, even though they knew they were having a child with a devastating chromosomal disorder. What they don't seem to grasp is that the ability to make that choice to continue that pregnancy, this is directly related to the ability of someone to make a choice to not continue a pregnancy. Because if the government
value the choice,
if a government can tell you that you must continue a pregnancy, it can also tell you that you can't continue a pregnancy. Well, and that's what happens when you take the choice away from the individual involved and put it in the hands of a government entity.
Well, I remember one time watching a program, it was like some kind of a political comedy commentary thing. I can't remember exactly what it was. It might have been, I can't remember. But they had a female reporter that was covering a caucus, and they were at the time, it was at the time that Sarah Palin's daughter had her baby, or chosen to go through with her pregnancy, whatever it was, but she had come out publicly that she was going to have the baby. And so the reporter was kind of like a comic reporter, but they were seriously interviewing people during this caucus, where I don't think, the people understood fully that this was a comedy thing. They just thought it was a reporter. So she's going up to people and she's talking to them about, what do you think about Sarah Palin's daughter, choosing to have this baby? And they were just like, I think it's awesome that she, chose life and chose to go, through with her pregnancy, and that she, didn't choose death. And they're going on about it. And so finally the reporter, after she would interview them about what they think about how great it was that she chose life, she would say, do you think she should have been able to choose? And the reaction was just sort of a stunned, you could almost see the gears lock up in their brains as they tried to think of how to even, what does that question even mean? And it's do you think that she should have been allowed to choose that? And they really just didn't know how to process the question at all. Oh, sorry, I got some cat.
Your cat gets so mad.
I'm muting.
But the thing about the Santorums is they almost tout their disabled daughter and talk about their son. It's almost like they're trophies. I mean, seriously, they talk about it all the time. Santorum does, or did, when he was in the spotlight. they don't think privacy is a virtue or a right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, those who seek public office in this day and age do understand that there's going to be a great level of scrutiny on not just the person in government, but the family as well. So I think it attracts certain people who rather do enjoy that and welcome that. Some folks choose to go on reality shows, and there are a lot of people who say, I'm not running for an office that I'd be really great at and could do great things in because I don't want that level of scrutiny on my family and myself. So
Yeah.
it's we've gotten ourselves into a mighty pickle, I'd argue. I think that, it's interesting times, like the Chinese curse says. It is interesting times indeed.
Well, we are coming up on an hour 40. Jamilla, did you have any news stuff you wanted to talk about? Anything you wanted to say?
I love the podcast, and Godless Bitches, you rock.
Well, thank you. You rock.
Thanks.
You're awesome.
Yeah.
Well, remember all the announcements from the beginning, and I guess we'll wrap it up here. All right.
Everybody needs to get themselves to Denver.
Yes.
Yes.
And Austin. Denver and Austin.
That's right. Yes.
See you there, both places.
All right. Well, this is Beth signing out.
This is Jen signing out.
It's Tracie saying goodnight.
I guess I'm Jamilla, and it was great to be here. I'm leaving too.